How late are you here at night? On night? How late? Is your on home at night? Christy. Okay. You want me to do that? When we're gonna get part of the item overnight, it'll probably be 5 by 6 a.m.
Yeah, I should be here. If not, 5, right here. All 5.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Chris, I reached into my pocket trying to double it. Didn't have quite enough work. It sets the world on fire, right?
Every percentage of budget.
And I'm here for now. They don't know that.
And then they
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good to me.
And I asked her. For no comment. No, I called to find out the rule.
Okay, this is a work session, so we don't formally call to order, but we do have a change to the agenda. We're going to be adding an item number 2, or replacing or moving down item numbers 2 and 3 to add Edgerton Wastewater Treatment Project, which was discussed at the end of our council meeting last Monday. So with that, Dave, service organization signs.
Good evening. So we have a PowerPoint we'll put up. This is issues come up typically, though we don't have a formal policy with regard to service organization signs in the right-of-way. What the city has done for many years is to put a sign up. Generally what we've been trying to do is limit it to the approach from South Gardner Road off of I-35, and then at Moonlight and Main for the eastern approach into the city. Typically, the organization will furnish us a sign and we'll install it. What we've tried to do is, we'll show it in the PowerPoint, is limited to a single sign with some alternate plates that maybe say meeting location and time. There's no policy that requires us to do it. We've always done it as a service organization. As a general concept, you know, it's best to limit the use of the right-of-way, both from a maintenance standpoint, from a public safety standpoint, just obstacles in the right-of-way. As you'll see on the South Gardner approach, there's quite a few signs there. The issue that's come up is the American Legion approached us quite some time ago. Originally, we were going to install, talking about a single sign. As we continue to discuss with the Legion, there's 4 separate organizations that they would like signs for. The issue that we've always struggled with is if you put more than one sign up, where's the parity? How do you install them? The Legion had proposed basically a construct with 4 signs on a single post, which structurally wouldn't work, but then we're ending up with larger signs in the right-of-way. We had countered back to them and said until we can get a common service organization sign at some point, we can install 2 signs at one location, 2 at the other, you'll have all 4 signs up. Ultimately, the best solution would be a common service organization sign monument, as it were. Possible location would be on the east side of the town, on the approach in at Moonlight, next to Entire. There's a detention pond, possibly the dam of that would be a good location. I think there's been several efforts on the part of the city through the years to fund through donations such a structure. Those have never gone anywhere. Possibility would be for the service organizations to go together and put up a sign. So I guess short-term, until such a sign is, I think our recommendation with regard to the Legion signs would be our original proposal to install 2 signs at the South Gardner approach and 2 signs on the East Main approach. That would at least achieve some parity. Let's see. Oh, okay. Sorry, there it is, and I'm,
You have the remote.
I had the remote and was failing. Okay. And this is what you see as you approach on the westbound US 56 at the railroad tracks into New Century. 3 signs.
Not wanting to work.
Here it goes.
Okay, they're a little closer. In this case, it's the Rotary, Masons, and Lions. Okay, let's go to the next one.
I just put the
And then here's the typical sign we've been installing. Okay,
you try it again. see if
Okay.
it sounds.
there we go. And it's a 30-inch sign with the informational plates. This is the proposal that the Legion had suggested, basically 4 signs of 24, 2 and 3/18. Once again, on a single post, it structurally would be difficult. It's approximately side to side, be 4 feet. And typically what we've got is typically a 30-inch sign on a single post. Let's see, at the end of the show. And with that, I don't know, as I say, I think the long-term solution would be to move forward to the group sign. I think as an interim measure, I think we'd recommend staying with minimal signs, not building special structures, but what we could install on a single post. As I say, once again, it's use of right-of-way, maintenance, visibility, obstacles, and with that, Jody and I could answer questions.
I have, the Gardner Edgerton High School Blazer signs, are those on private property?
Pardon me?
Are those on private property? The signs that they put out for the football games? Like I saw one behind those are on private property?
Yeah.
Okay.
Typically.
And they're not legal.
Huh?
Those are technically not legal.
Okay. I'm going to voice my opinion, which I've said from the beginning, is I personally, and based on these pictures that I've seen, I understand if these signs were put up closer to an intersection, I could understand some questions around visibility, but they're not. They're, to me, you're driving straight across 56 or coming straight down Center Street. You're not at an intersection. So I don't understand why that would be an issue. That's my opinion.
Dave, I understand your reluctance to have one specially built like what you showed with the 4 18-inch, because it does spread out, like you said, 4 feet. But would the city have any problems with adding extra 8 by 24-inch signs underneath the 30-inch sign to delineate that they wanted to do the parent sign and 3 other signs? Would the city have any objection to doing 3 smaller signs below that 30-inch?
No, actually, I think.
On the same post.
I think the one concept shows it just exactly like that.
I
What they-
went through it pretty quick, sorry about that.
Yeah, but they didn't like that concept.
Can you go back to that? I don't really.
Sure, let's see what we can do.
Alan,
Oh,
All right.
go back one.
no.
So the next,
See, this one has the square signs,
So,
and I
yeah,
think,
any combination of those nameplates and the standard 30-inch sign like everybody else is using would have been sufficient for us.
you want to maintain some clearance from the ground to the bottom of the sign.
Right,
If
for
people are walking,
upkeep. And-
pedestrians, maintenance.
Yeah, I understand.
That's why we suggested 2 signs per post at max.
And the 30 inches on this diagram, that's what they are right now. That's the current signs is 30 inches.
Yes.
Can we go back to the photo that shows the signs coming in?
There you go.
Okay. I realize that these are in a single stanchion. But is there a problem with taking their original sign design concept in supporting it with two legs?
There's not a problem with it, it's just, once again, you know, I mean, things we as staff have to worry about as president. And, you know, we start doing it for one organization, others say, well, I have these other organizations too, we want that kind of a sign. You know, we would
Yeah, and I
recommend,
think it's important to point out that if every one of these signs were 4 feet wide, what would it look like?
Right.
But what is the standard, or we probably should talk about a standard first before we go any further, and that is, you know, what classifies an organization as worthy of a sign? I mean, does the Nike Elementary PTO also get a sign? Does the, you know, Knights of Columbus get a sign? I mean, that's a lot of signs.
yeah,
Right now, there's no policy in the book regarding this sort of signage at all, is there?
that is correct. I mean, you bring up an excellent point.
I mean, I think before we go any further on any more signs, I mean, there's, in my opinion, just from an aesthetic point of view, there's too many signs on that road as it is. I mean, it detracts from the most important sign, which is a, you know, intersection with a railroad crossing, you know, so, I think if you're gonna do it, you ought to have one sign, you know, a logo that's easily distinguishable from anybody that's in that group, for instance, Rotary. You know, anyone can identify with that sign, and if they're interested in attending a meeting, if they're new to town, they're certainly gonna get on the internet and check out where that chapter is meeting, what their dates are. I mean, it seems really not even necessary to have the place and time anymore when all that stuff is available to anybody that's interested. I mean, I can understand one sign with, hey, there's a local chapter of this organization, but even that, I mean, you're gonna have a huge sign by the time it's all said and done.
Mhm.
So,
Yep.
I'm not sure.
My personal opinion, I think probably American Legion wants our direction in some way. I think, as you mentioned, the precedent's been set by these three signs. If they can meet within these design standards that are established right now, then we'd be happy to follow the same rules and put a sign up for them. In the meantime, city staff probably needs to work on designing a well-written ordinance that declares exactly what defines a group that's eligible for the signage, what the design constraints are going to be, and how those will be done in the future, so we don't have a meeting like this to say, can we do this? But right now, we've established a precedent. If they want to work within this, fine, but we're not going to break anything outside that standard to put something special up, is what my personal feelings are.
Okay.
And my opinion is, as far as establishing precedents, I totally understand that. However, none of these groups that are up here have 3 organizations, or actually 4 organizations that are part of one. So this has never really been breached before, approached before, so to me, there is no precedent.
But doesn't usually, if one American Legion post has a group, isn't there usually other groups within that group?
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying, yeah, so you have the American, the Sons, the Auxiliary, but what I'm saying is these signs here that we're saying are precedents, they don't have any subordinate groups like that. So to me, there is no precedent. There's a precedent for single organizations, but there really isn't one for an organization like this.
I think Larry's thought, though, is if you make people coming into town aware that there's an American Legion organization, that they know that that's also the central resource for all the groups that fall under the same umbrella, and they can find out where to get that information. They're not going to get it off the first glance of this sign, passing it at 45 miles an hour into a stoplight.
Maybe there should just be a sign that says, organizations, you know, Gardner organizations, and then GardnerKansas.com/org or something, you know, or whatever, I mean, you know, and just direct people to that. I don't know, it seems like this is more of a 1950s or 60s convention to have a sign up like that when there's so much more information that can be imparted in other ways through the internet. But, and I think the 4 round signs, as I think I've told Jeff Barber, that's just too much, in my opinion. I think it's overkill, it's, you know, just too big.
It's another question. I didn't look before I came in, but on the city website, do we have a link to any local civic organizations? Because that might be something we can tie in for the folks. I mean, then you could go to GardnerKansas.gov and find out all the information that the groups that are available for you, and links and some more.
And we certainly can do that. again, it just goes back to setting up a
Defining.
policy. We did something similar with banners over Main Street in the past, before we stopped that program due to the safety issues. And we could certainly bring back sort of what are the parameters, because you want to make sure that you define for staff what types of groups would qualify to fall underneath there. And then, of course, maintenance, you would probably want to go ahead and put that burden back on the clubs, that they make sure that the link stays accurate instead of city staff having to try to track that down, but we can get it up there, that's easy, so.
Yeah.
So,
I'll just add that this isn't new. This has been kicked around for years and years, and monuments is always seems to be the best idea. The centralized site with a monument that will hold all of our civic groups in one site, but we've just not been able to accomplish that yet.
maybe if you make it a number of members, minimum, then at least you would keep the signs to a minimum on that billboard. In other words, if it's only got 20 members in it, maybe shouldn't be on the billboard to begin with. Otherwise, you're gonna run out of real estate, I think.
Real fast.
And the other thing that I would go back to on that again is just like, you had mentioned the policy on what qualifies again. I've seen, when I was up in the Chicago area, some situations that came up with groups that you perhaps wouldn't want to affiliate yourself with as a community. So that's where you kind of need to make sure you watch your freedom of speech issues and things of that nature. So when you do stuff like that, you have to just realize that all comes into play, so.
Does the sign company or the sign ordinance company that we just hired, do they have
This is not
guidance?
within their scope. I'm sure we could get them to look at it, but it's not within their scope. Their scope is buildings, not signs in the right of way, different situation.
So what did we decide?
I don't know that we've decided anything yet. It doesn't really interfere with the railroad sign, because it would be going after the railroad.
But the railroad sign loses its visibility with all the other clutter behind it.
And I think if they put it in front of it would, but
Yeah,
behind
if
it,
they
I
put it
agree with
behind
Chris,
it, they won't.
that the first thing you see is the railroad sign, not the others.
And I'm not convinced that it would be a real blight. My guess is, the leadership at the American Legion, they do things right. And, if it was back behind where the Lion sign is, so that it doesn't obscure any of the other signs, I'm not sure that it really causes a problem. And Christie's right, I don't think that Rotary has Interact for the high school kids, but that's only one more, and could probably go below, but aside from that, I don't know that it's going to be a problem, and Melissa mentioned outside, Chicago, and you don't want to get, but the Rotary and Masons and Lions and certainly the American Legion, we've got 4 veterans up here. I don't think that we have to worry about any kind of bad behavior from any of the groups.
No, I completely agree, but at the same point, I think, as Larry asked, what did we decide? I think what we decided is that we need have city staff to draw us up a proposal for what they feel is, and what they deem appropriate, and let's go from there.
You mean a proposal for standard?
For standard signs, yes.
Okay. We can sure do that.
Because I agree with both of you, without having an actual written standard, we're kind of just pushing the can down the road, so to speak.
Well, and we've kind of been doing that for a while. When did the Legion folks first come to you all?
We originally, I think Carrie originally approached me probably a year ago, and we've kind of been working. At that point, we thought we could possibly get some sort of a group sign put together. Possibly as an interim measure, maybe we could take the master Legion sign and get it mounted.
Yeah, I think at that time too, they were looking for a monument, they were looking for a centralized site for the city to provide, and then the service organizations to get together and pick up their share of the monument.
Has
which,
the,
we were not able to provide.
has
And-
the whole
You couldn't find a site available,
Right.
or?
We have I think a good candidate would be, it's city-owned property, it's there's a detention pond just to the east of where Entire and, some of the businesses are on the, off Lincoln Lane.
All right.
That might be a very good location.
Can I ask a member, somebody in the audience, a question?
Sure.
Jeff, have you talked to any of the other civic agencies, groups, about putting up a group monument?
From the Legion?
From anybody else, from the Lions, Knights, about their willingness to help pay for it?
No, I'd actually reached out to Larry Portovich about maybe getting with the Chamber of Commerce. Maybe we can get several of the organizations together and do one monument that does like your Chamber, your Rotary, your Lions, and then have all of us be represented that way on one side, maybe the east end of town. We're just, as Beth, just trying to get people to recognize that.
Absolutely, I agree,
And
yeah.
not just the Legion, there's also the
Right.
Women's Auxiliary. They're a separate charter from the Legion, so
Okay.
even though we're all kind of together, we are separate.
No, I agree, and, just trying to make it fair for everybody, and, I think a lot of the organizations, rather than put up small signs like this, would probably be willing to go into a group monument. I just think that probably have to get everybody involved.
let me, can I ask something of the Legion guys also?
Jeff's into it first.
Mhm.
Can you, Jeff, can you
Jeff or
approach
Henry come up?
one of you guys come approach the desk?
Sure.
I guess my question to you all would be, first off, if you would be willing to help spearhead finding a suitable site for a monument and working with the other civic organizations as well as maybe the Chamber of Commerce or whoever, I would imagine that you would be. But if you are working towards that end, would you be comfortable with a single sign and the other organizations listed below it until such a time that the monument could be erected and the signs put up?
Well, for as much as what these do cost, and of course, we do a lot of fundraising, which we don't really want to spend a lot of it towards signs that are going to be temporary. I'm not saying we're not opposed to waiting, but we do want to represent all four of our groups that do all their own individual things, their own individual community support.
Mm-hmm.
But we could certainly talk to our own group and pass it through them or see if they are interested in that.
Yeah, I'd like to see the proposal that you brought forward, but I don't know that we're going to get consensus here on that.
I just want to somehow equally, because each of these signs are about the same size, and they do have their separate group. We don't want to diminish what one of our groups does by saying they just get a plate where one gets a bigger sign. We didn't want to send that impression. That was one of the main things. What did you have to say?
Well, one thing I wanted to say, I've been kind of researching this thing and going around to the smaller towns. Ottawa has signs. Pomona has signs. Eudora has signs. And what they've done is basically taken heavy horse fence, put it between two poles, and it looks good and eliminates the idea of the wind blowing it down and stuff, so you can still see through it. So visually, it looks a lot better than just having signs up and down the roads. And I meant to bring those in tonight, but I wasn't even sure I was going to be here tonight. But anyways, the benefit of the signs is what a lot of them have done is they put the signs up of all the service organizations, then they put a phone number you can call the city hall, so city hall's knowing what's going on, and they're putting out those numbers to different organizations. Now, there's just how you get a hold of them, what have you. But they look good. They look good. And you go to some of the places where they just got individual signs. Personally, I think that gets corroded. You know what I mean? You've got signs everywhere, and people are doing this all over the place trying to find out what all these signs are. Because you got signs for McDonald's, Burger King, then we got Rotary, and then we got, Legion, if in fact we did it that way. So, the original proposal, Dave's been real good about things, was to try and do the bigger sign. We just didn't know how to do that. And the other side of the coin is, I think the Legion, we've talked about this, and they're willing to go with most or some of the money to try to help do this. We've got a lot of people that will help put it up. I mean, it's really not gonna be at much expense to the city in the long run. You know, the signs we have to order through the American Legion, and we'd like to get all the service organizations together. They can get smaller signs, they don't have to be 30-inch. Most of them can go to 24, 18, and you can put them all together, and it looks more unified for the city. So that was the idea behind the thing in the beginning. And then we kind of got off on the own thing with just doing the Legion by itself, because we didn't have any choice. But we could, you know, possibly get some pictures and stuff together and get a presentation for you that'll help.
I'm definitely for the group monument, because you're right, because then a lot of the, my family's from up north, northern Kansas, and most of the small ones, and that towns up there do have that.
Exactly.
And like you said, it shows a unified community. And then, don't think we need to have a phone number, but definitely a website, like Heath was saying, that directs them all to the organizations. I think, if everybody agrees, I think that's the way staff ought to go for it.
Yeah, and I just want to be clear. So, Carrie, when you're talking about, I think you said with the fences and that, was that, when you're looking at that, whatever you would bring forth, would that be for all these organizations, or would that be for the union?
I'd rather do, I'm like him, Brian, I'd rather do it for everybody, because it shows a unified city. And that's the benefit when you go down to some of these smaller cities. It kind of surprises me that we don't have one, to be honest with you, because we should be. You know, and if you take down all those individual signs and put them on one sign, then you've opened up the visual part of it, correct? I mean, that's how I look at it.
Yep.
Well, and so, I'll get back to my point. I mean, if you have a sign that you could move from the right-of-way to the monument, would you like to get a sign up now with the intention that you were gonna have a monument that's gonna have all your signs on it?
We'd already have the sign if we did it that way, I guess, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
So that's probably a good idea, sure.
So if we were to order a 60-inch sign right now, we can move that to the money? Okay.
It's just, you know, and like I said, Dave's been good about trying to help us on that, and it is a problem, we understand when you got 4 different organizations, but that's the Legion, you know, we've got 4 different organizations, or 3 under the umbrella of one, and it's kind of a problem, but we're not asking for any more than anything else, that's why we wanted to bring it all together.
Okay. Well, and I know the Legion's pretty good about helping provide manpower and stuff so that you don't necessarily have to hire a contractor.
Right.
And I'm sure that some of the other groups would probably, being Frank Postal Plate's a builder by trade, and he's Mr. Kiwanis Club in town.
Yeah, because all the guys have volunteered to do whatever it takes, you know. And how this initially came up is we had a lot of people coming to Gardner, and Christie's probably explained that. Didn't even know we had a Legion here. I can tell you, I've been here, 12, 13 years now. For the first 5 years, I didn't know Legion was here. And then, of course, the writers come up, and we got involved and found out there was one here and started that organization. But I had no clue there was a Legion here. Or I would have joined a long time ago. And people are just finding that out, and that's been the consistent complaint since we've been here, is that nobody knows we're even here.
We actually just had a recent member that's lived here since 1952, lived towards the DeSoto area. He just transferred here a few months back, never knew that we had an American Legion here. So, and everyone knows where Legion's at, our post, we're way off the beaten path in the cheapest real estate you can buy in the city. So, it's kind of hard to find us.
So are we, Mike, Melissa, you got what you need to try to draw something up?
I think we have pretty good direction as far as developing a standard and considering a monument that would be all-inclusive of the service clubs that you all would decide would qualify to be on that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at the signs here, but I know Knights of Columbus usually want signs. I know that Kiwanis Club usually wants signs. Fort, we've got a pretty active 4-H group out here.
Mike, I wasn't real clear though. So if we go going the monument route, is the design of the monument come upon the city's shoulders, or is that something one of the groups leads with the design and has to go through the planning commission for approval? How's that process work? Because they need direction in that regard as well.
You know, if it's going to be in the right of way, it's going to have to meet city standards. It doesn't mean we can't work cooperatively together on a design that meets everybody's needs and conforms to the city's
Okay.
requirements.
I don't think it needs to go through the planning commission, but like I said, I think we can write it up.
I'll defer to Dave on that, as far as the...
I think it would just be subject to going through the normal process for a sign. And the location that we think would be good, actually is technically right-of-way, but it's actually behind the fence off of the US 56 right-of-way on the eastern approach into town.
So can we talk about timeframes? Like, I mean, what, because